The 12th of June, 1899, Volume 2. Jesus himself prepares her for communion. This morning, having to receive communion, I was praying, good Jesus, to come to prepare me himself before the confessor would come to celebrate Holy Mass. Otherwise, how can I receive you, being so bad and not disposed? While I was doing this, my Jesus was pleased to come, and in the very act of seeing him, it seemed to me that he did nothing but dart me through with his gazes, most pure, most sparkling with light. Who can say what those penetrating gazes operated in me, letting not even the shadow of a little speck escape? It is impossible to say it. Rather, I would have wanted to let all this pass in silence, because the internal operations of grace can hardly be expressed as they are with one's mouth. Rather, it seems that one would counterfeit them. But Lady Obedience does not want it, and when it is for her, one must close one's eyes and surrender without saying anything else. Otherwise, woes everywhere. In fact, since she is a lady, by herself she makes herself be respected. Therefore I continue. In the first gaze I prayed Jesus to purify me, and so it seemed to me that everything that shadowed my soul was shaken off of it. In the second gaze I prayed him to illuminate me, because what good comes to a precious stone from being pure if it is not sparkling so as to capture the gaze of those who look at it? They will look at it, yes, but with an indifferent air. Much more was I in need of that light, which would not only render my soul resplendent, but would make me understand the great action I was about to do, since I was not only to be looked at, but identified with my sweet Jesus. Therefore it was not enough for me to be purged, but also illuminated. So in that gaze, Jesus seemed to penetrate through me, just as the light of the sun penetrates through crystal. After this, seeing that Jesus continued to look at me, I said to him, Most loving Jesus, since you were first pleased to purge me and then to illuminate me, be so kind now as to sanctify me. More so since I have to receive you, who are holy of holies, and therefore it is not right that I be so different from you. So, always benign toward this miserable one, Jesus leaned toward me, took my soul in his arms, and seemed to retouch it all over with his hands. Who can say what those touches of those creative hands operated in me? How my passions at those touches put themselves in their place? My desires, inclinations, affections, heartbeats, and my other senses, sanctified by those divine touches, changed into something wholly other, and united among themselves, no longer clashing as before, formed a sweet harmony for the hearing of my dear Jesus. It seemed to me that they were like many rays of light, which wounded his adorable heart. Oh, how Jesus amused himself, and what happy moments those have been for me. I experienced the peace of the saints. It was a paradise of contentments and of delights for me. After this, Jesus seemed to clothe my soul with a garment of faith, of hope, and of charity. And in the very act of clothing me, Jesus whispered to me the way I was to exercise myself in those three virtues. Now, while I was doing this, unleashing another ray of light, Jesus made me understand my nothingness. I seemed to be a grain of sand in the midst of a most extensive sea, which is God. And this little grain went to dissolve itself inside that immense sea. It dissolved in God. Then he transported me outside of myself, carrying me in his arms, and kept whispering to me various acts of contrition for my sins. I only remember that I have been an abyss of iniquities. Lord, oh, how many awful ingratitudes I've had towards you. While I was doing this, I looked at Jesus. He had the crown of thorns on his head. I stretched out my hand and I removed it from him, saying, Give the thorns to me, O Jesus, for I am a sinner. The thorns befit me, not you, who are the just one, the holy one. So Jesus drove it onto my head. Then I don't know how I saw the confessor from afar. Immediately I prayed to Jesus that he would go to prepare the confessor to be able to receive him at communion. And Jesus seemed to go to Father. After a little while he came back and told me, I want the way you deal with me and with the confessor to be one, and I want the same from him. He must look at you and deal with you as if you were another me, because since you are a victim as I was, I want no difference at all. And this so that everything may be purged, and my love alone may shine in everything. I said to him, Lord, this seems impossible, that I may deal with the confessor as one does with you, especially in seeing the instability. And Jesus, yes, it is so. True virtue, true love, makes everything disappear, destroys everything, and with enchanting mastery, makes God alone shine through all of its operations, and it looks at everything in God. After this, the confessor came to call me to obedience, and then celebrate Holy Mass. And so it ended. Then I listened to Holy Mass and I received communion. Now, who can say the intimacy that passed between Jesus and me? It is impossible to manifest it. I have no words to make myself understood, therefore I let it pass in silence. End of the reading. The 12th of June 1900, Volume 3. Obedience makes her ask Jesus to let her suffer in order to prevent chastisements. This morning, as my lovable Jesus came, I began to say, Lord, what are you doing? It seems you are going too far with justice. And while I wanted to continue speaking in order to excuse the human miseries, Jesus imposed silence on me, saying, Be quiet if you want me to remain with you. Come to kiss me and greet me and all my suffering members with your usual adorations. So I began from his head, and then little by little the other members. Oh, how many deep wounds that sacrosanct body contained! It struck horror at the mere sight. Then as soon as I finished, he disappeared, leaving me with very little suffering and with a fear. Who knows how he will pour upon the people, since he did not deign to pour his bitternesses upon me? After a little while, the confessor came, and I told him what I have said above, and he said to me, Today, out of absolute obedience, when you do your meditation, you must pray him to let you suffer the crucifixion and to cease to send scourges. So when I did my meditation, I prayed him according to the obedience received. He just barely made himself seen, but without paying attention to me. On the contrary, he made himself seen, now giving his back to the people, now sleeping so as not to be importuned by me. And even if I felt I was dying, he did not care about letting me do the obedience. So I plucked up courage, and placing all my trust in holy obedience, I took him by one arm, and shaking him in order to wake him up, I said to him, Lord, what are you doing? Is this the love you have for your so favourite virtue of obedience? Are these the praises you have given it so many times? Are these the honours you have lavished on it, to the point of saying you feel moved and cannot resist the virtue of obedience, and you feel subjugated by the soul who gives herself to this virtue? And now it seems you do not care about letting me obey. While I was saying this and other things, so it'd be too long if I wanted to write them, Blessed Jesus stirred himself, and as though struck by a most acute pain, he burst into tears and sobbing said, I too do not want to send scourges, but it is justice that compels me almost by force. But you, with this speaking, want to cut me to the quick and touch a key too delicate for me and greatly loved by me. So much so that I wanted no other honour or title but that of obedient. So now, to show you that it is not that I do not care about letting you obey, in spite of the fact that my justice forces me not to do it, I will share with you, in part, the pains of the cross. While doing this, he disappeared, leaving me content for what he let me obey, and with a sorrow in my soul, as though I had been the cause of the Lord's crying with my suffering. Ah, Lord, I beg you to forgive me. End of the reading. The 12th of June, 1913, Volume 11. The effects of fusing oneself in Jesus, taking part in his work. This produces the life of the divine will and the life of the divine love in the soul. Therefore, the most holy Trinity is formed in her. While I was praying, I was uniting my mind to the mind of Jesus, my eyes to those of Jesus, and so forth with everything else, with the intention of doing what Jesus did with his mind, with his eyes, with his mouth, with his heart, and so forth. And as it seemed that the mind of Jesus, his eyes, etc., were spreading themselves for the good of all, it also seemed that I too was spreading myself for the good of all, uniting and identifying myself with Jesus. Now I was thinking to myself, what kind of meditation is this? What prayer? I'm no longer good at anything. I'm not even able to reflect on something. While I was thinking of this, my always adorable Jesus told me, "My daughter, what? Are you afflicting yourself with this? Instead of troubling yourself, you should be happy. Because when you were meditating at other times and many beautiful reflections arose within your mind, you did nothing other than take part in me, in my qualities and in my virtues. Now, since the only thing left to you is the opportunity of uniting and identifying yourself with me, you take everything from me. Unable to do any good by yourself, with me you become good at everything, because desiring and wanting good produce strength in the soul which makes her grow and which settles her in the divine life. Then by uniting and identifying herself with me, she unites with my mind, producing many lives of holy thoughts in the minds of the creatures. As she unites with my eyes, she produces many lives of holy glances in the creatures. In the same way, if she unites with my mouth, she will give life to the words. If she unites to my heart, my desires, my hands, my steps, she will give a life for every heartbeat, life to desires, to actions, to steps, but holy lives, since I contain within me creative power, and therefore the soul together with me creates and does whatever I do. Now, this union with me, part to part, mind to mind, heart to heart, etc., produces in you, in the highest degree, the life of my will and of my love. The Father is formed in this will, and the Holy Spirit in this love, while the Son is formed by the operations, the words, the works, the steps, and by all the rest that can come from this will and from this love. Here is the Trinity in the souls. In this way, if we need to operate, it is indifferent whether we operate within the Trinity in heaven or within the Trinity of the souls on earth. This is why I keep taking everything else away from you, although they may be good and holy things, to give you the best and the holiest, myself, and to make of you another myself, as much as this is possible for the creature. I believe you won't lament any more, will you? And I, Jesus, Jesus. I feel rather that I have become awful bad. And the worst is that I'm unable to find this badness of mine, so that at least I would do anything I can to cast it away. And Jesus, stop. Do not go too deeply into the thought of yourself. Think of me, and I will take care of your badness too. Have you understood? End of the reading. The 12th of June, 1918, Volume 12. By sinning, man comes against divine justice. Jesus has done everything for us. Finding myself in my usual state, I was saying to my always lovable Jesus, how is it possible? You have done everything for us. You have satisfied everything. You have restored the glory of the Father in everything on part of the creatures, so as to cover us all with a mantle of love, of graces, of blessings. Yet, in spite of this, chastisements fall down, almost tearing through the mantle of protection with which you covered us. And my sweet Jesus, interrupting me, said to me, my daughter, all that you are saying is true. Everything. I have done everything for the creature. Love pushed me toward her so much that I wanted to wrap her within my words, as if within a mantle of defense, in order to be sure of putting her in safety. But the creature, ungrateful, rips this mantle of defense by voluntary sin. She escapes from beneath my blessings, graces, and love, and going outside, she is struck by the lightnings of divine justice. I am not the one who strikes man. He himself, by sinning, comes against me to receive the blows. Pray for the great blindness of creatures. End of the reading. The 12th of June, 1921, Volume 13. There where God finds his life, he shall stop and dwell forever. Then will he rest, not in the work of creation, but within his own life. The soul must be the centre of the divine will. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus continues to speak to me about his holy will, telling me, my beloved daughter, birthed from my will, I do not want you sky studded with stars. I would like it, I would find my work, but it would not satisfy me because I would not find myself. Nor do I want you sun, though I would find delight in it. I would find the shadow of my light and heat, but not finding myself, I would pass over you. Nor do I want you flowery earth with flowers, plants, and fruits, although it might please me, since I would find the breath of my fragrances, traces of my sweetness, the mastery of my created hand. In some, I would find my works, but not my life. Therefore, I would pass over everything. I would continue to wander without stopping, to find what? My life. And where will I find my life? In the soul who lives in my will. This is why I do not want you sky, sun, or flowery earth, but centre of my will. There where I find my life, I shall stop and dwell forever. Only then will I be content. I will rest not in my work as in creation, but in my own life. Know that your life must be the fiat. My fiat delivered you to the light, and like a noble queen carrying the fiat creator in your womb, you must walk through the field of life upon the wings of that same fiat, sowing everywhere the seed of my will, in order to form many other centres of my life upon earth, and then come back into my own fiat in heaven. Be faithful to me, and my will be your life, the hand which leads you, the feet to walk, the mouth to speak. In sum, it will make up for you in everything. End of the reading. The 12th of June, 1927, Volume 22. Relations that exist between creator and creature, between redeemer and redeemed ones, between sanctifier and sanctified ones, who it is that will be able to read the divine characters. I was following the acts of the divine fiat according to my usual way, in order to repair and bind all the relations between creator and creature, between redeemer and redeemed ones, between sanctifier and sanctified ones, broken by the human will. And my beloved Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, one who wants to know all the relations existing between creator and creature, and to keep their bonds enforced, must let my divine will reign within herself with absolute dominion. In fact, since the life of my will is present in all creation, she will form one single life for all created things. And since the life is one, she will understand their language and the relations existing with her creator. Each created thing speaks of its creator and possesses the legible characters of my divine fiat. But do you know who it is that is capable of hearing their voice, of understanding their celestial speaking, and of reading the divine characters which each created thing has imprinted within itself? One who possesses my will. She has the hearing to be able to listen to their voice, the intelligence to comprehend them, the eyes to read the divine characters that with so much love her Creator impressed within each created thing. On the other hand, one who does not let my will reign finds herself in the condition of one who is deaf and cannot listen, of one who is a cretin and cannot comprehend, of one who has not studied the variety of languages, and as much as one may speak, he understands nothing. In the same way, in order to maintain the relations existing between Redeemer and redeemed ones, and to know them, one must study my life. Each of my words, works, steps, heartbeats, and pains were all bonds with which I came to bind all the redeemed ones. But who is bound? One who studies my life and tries to imitate me. As she imitates me, she remains bound to my words, works, steps, etc., receives their life and will have the hearing to be able to listen to all my teachings, the mind to comprehend them, and the eyes to read all the characters impressed within me in coming to redeem mankind. And if the creature does not do this, the characters of redemption will be illegible for her. It will be a foreign language for her, and the relations and bonds of redemption will not be in force. The creature will always be the one who is born blind to all our goods with which we wanted to enrich her. And one who wants to know and receive all the relations and bonds of sanctity must love the sanctifier. The Holy Spirit puts his flame on the way toward one who truly loves and binds her with the relations of his sanctity. Without love there is no sanctity, because the bonds of true sanctity are already broken. My Jesus kept silent, and I remained all immersed in the supreme fiat. Then my beloved good added, my daughter, one who lives in my will drinks light. And just as light is such that while one sees it and enjoys it, others too can see it and enjoy it, the same for my will. In giving itself to the soul as light and investing her completely, it bilocates her whole interior and gives light to each thought of creature. It bilocates her word and gives light to the words of others. It bilocates her works, her steps, and gives light to those of others. Light possesses the true and perfect bilocation, and while it is one, it has the virtue of bilocating for each one who wants to enjoy it and see it. Is the sun not one? And yet how many see it and enjoy it? Much more so for the sun of my will, that the soul drinks, filling herself completely with its light. Though it is one, it has the virtue of bilocating for each act, word, step, etc., and forms the enchantment of its divine light. End of the reading. The 12th of June 1928, Volume 24. How God feels the joys of the first times of creation being renewed. The enchantment that the divine will produce for the human will, example of the sun. When and where the marriage with humanity was done, and when it will be renewed again. I continue my round in the acts that the divine fiat did in creation, and that it still preserves in its own hand, with such power and wisdom, as if in each act it repeated the act already done, while it is nothing other than the continuation of one single act. Now, while my mind was carrying itself into Eden, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, when you do your round in my will, in order to trace all of its acts, to surround them with cortege, to love them, to make them one with yours, and you arrive at Eden, I feel the joys, the feasts, the happiness that our divinity felt in creation being repeated. Oh, how seeing you flow in the sun, in the wind, in the sea, in the heavens, reminds us vividly of the rapid flight of the first creature that came out of our creative hands. In fact, since he was in the unity of our will, of all our acts done in creation for love of him, he would make one single act, and in his single act, he would bring us all our acts as though in triumph. So Adam would bring to us all the joys of all the things that we had as though scattered, ordered, and harmonized in the whole universe. And oh, how happy we would feel in seeing him so rich, strong, powerful, of an enchanting beauty, coming before us, endowed with all our works, and bringing them to us to make us happy and to glorify us, and to be happy together with us. So in seeing you continue his flights and to go around everywhere, we see how beautiful is the life of the creature in our will. It seems that she wants to enter into all our acts. She wants to take everything. But to do what? To give us everything and to make us happy. And we give her everything in return, saying to her, "These are your things. For you we have created them and issued them from ourselves." So, in seeing this, we feel the desire to restore the creation of man and to give the kingdom of our will. Then, with a more tender emphasis, he added, "My daughter, power I do not lack, neither do I lack will. Therefore it is I who must lift again decayed man and restore him, because the human will rendered the work of our creative hands a wreck." Then, moved to tears and sorrowful for poor man, he kept silent, and I thought to myself, how can we return to the original state of creation, since the human will has made man fall into an abyss of miseries, almost deforming him from the way in which he had been created? And my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, my will can do anything. Just as it made man from nothing, so it can draw the new man from his miseries, and without changing method from the way in which we created him, leaving him his free will, we will use another loving device. The light of our will unleash its most refulgent rays more strongly. It will draw close in such a way as to look the human will in the face, which will receive the enchantment of a penetrating light that, while dazzling it, sweetly draws it to itself. And the human will, attracted by a light so radiant and of rare beauty, will have the desire to see what is so beautiful in this light. In looking, it will undergo the enchantment, and it will feel happy and will love, not being forced but spontaneously, to live in our will. Does the light of the sun not have this virtue, that if one wants to fix on it, the pupil of the eye remains dazzled in the light, and if it tries to look, it will see nothing but light, and the power of the light prevents the pupil from looking at the things around it? And if man is forced to lower his eyes to be freed of the light, it is because the excessive light hinders him and he does not feel happy. But if he felt happy, he would not easily withdraw his pupils from within the light of the sun. On the other hand, the light of my will not hinder the pupils of the soul. On the contrary, she will have the good of seeing the very human acts converted into light, and will yearn for this light to unleash its rays more strongly, so as to see her acts with the enchantment and the beauty of this divine light. My will has the power to solve the problem of man, but it must use a more excessive act of greater magnanimity of our supreme fiat. Therefore, you pray and plead a cause so holy for poor creatures. After this, since it was the feast of Corpus Domini, I was thinking to myself that day was the feast of the marriage that blessed Jesus did with souls in the most holy sacrament of love. And my beloved Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, the true marriage with humanity was done in creation. Nothing was lacking, either to the soul or to the body. Everything was done with royal sumptuousness. An immense palace was prepared for the human nature, such that no king or emperor can have one similar to it, which is the whole universe, a starry heaven and its vault, a sun whose light would never be extinguished, flourishing gardens in which the happy couple, God and man, would stroll, amuse themselves, and maintain the continuous, uninterrupted feast of our marriage, and garments woven not with matter, but formed of purest light by our power, as befitted royal persons. Everything was beauty in man, soul and body, because he who prepared the marriage and formed it was of an unreachable beauty. So from the external sumptuousness of the so many enchanting beauties present in the whole of creation, you can imagine the internal seeds of sanctity, of beauty, of light, of science, etc., that the interior of man possessed. All the acts of man, internal and external, were as many musical keys that formed the most beautiful melodies, sweet, melodious, harmonious, that maintained the joy of the marriage. And each additional act that he would dispose himself to do was a new little sonata that he would prepare to call his spouse to delight with him. My divine will that dominated humanity brought him the new continuous act and the likeness of the one who had created him and married him. But in such great feast, man broke the strongest bond in which lay the whole validity of our marriage and through which it had been enforced. He withdrew from our will. Because of this, the marriage was broken. And since all the rights were lost, only the memory of it was left, but the substance, the life, the effects no longer existed. Now the sacrament of the Eucharist, in which my love overabounded in all possible imaginable ways, cannot be called either the first or the true marriage of creation, for I do nothing but the continuation of what I did while being on earth. According to the needs present in souls, with some I make myself the compassionate doctor in order to heal them, with some the teacher to instruct them, with some the father to forgive them, with some light to give them sight. I give strength to the weak, courage to the timid, peace to the restless. In some I continue my redemptive life and virtue. However, all these miseries exclude the true marriage. No young man marries a young woman who is ill. At most he waits for her to recover, or a young woman who is weak and who offends him very often. And if the groom is a king and loves her, at most he waits for the bride to get well, to love him, and for her condition to become somehow satisfactory and not so inferior to his. Now, the condition in which poor humanity finds itself is still that of a poor ill one, and I am waiting for my will to be known and to reign in the midst of creatures, for it will give them true health, royal garments, beauty worthy of me. Then I will form again the true and original marriage. End of the reading. The 12th of June 1932, Volume 30. One who lives in the divine will finds all the divine works in act and done for her. One who lives in the divine will does the office of breeze for the divine works. My little soul keeps going around within the divine fiat. It feels the irresistible need to live in it, because in it I find everything at my disposal. Everything is mine. Even more, I feel as though a secret invitation that all created things make me in the depths of my heart, saying to me with mute voice, "Come into our midst, come to possess us and enjoy the many beautiful works that our Creator made for you and to give us to you." Oh, what a sweet enchantment the whole of creation has. Look through the veils of the divine will. But while my little soul was as though enveloped in the sweet enchantment of all creation, my beloved Jesus, repeating for me his dear little visit, told me, "My blessed daughter, for one who lives in my will, everything is present. Past and future do not exist for her. Everything is in act. Since she enters the divine order, our paternal goodness does not want to give a love past that it had in creation, or a love that is to come. This would not reach into the heart of the creature, because to her it will seem that the love that was unleashed from our womb in creation would be like a love and a work that are not directed to her. And those of the future, like love and works to be hoped for. More so, since in us, past and future don't even exist. Past and future are for one who lives outside of our will, because she looks only at the exterior of our works, not inside of them, while one who lives in it looks at our works inside of us and looks at our creation as continuous and for each creature. So for the happy creature who lives in our volition, we let her see and touch with her own hand our act of stretching out the heavens, of creating the sun, the wind, the air, the sea, and so forth, all for her. And she sees and comprehends with clarity our intense love for her, in such a way that she feels involved and as though drowned through the waves of our love, power, wisdom, and goodness of each created thing. And while she feels drowned, she sees that creation for her shows no sign of ending, never says enough, but the creating act continues, always continues. And seeing that our creating and operating act never ceases, she echoes our love and never ceases loving us. Oh, how beautiful it is to find in the creature a continuous love that never ceases, just as our own never ceases. Even more, seeing herself drowned by our continuous love of sustaining the creating act for love of her, in order to requite us, she makes use of her stratagems to imitate us, and she says to us, "Supreme Majesty, oh, if I had the power, I too would make as many heavens, suns, and everything that you do for love of you. But since I am unable to, I give you heaven and sun and everything that you have given me, to tell you that I want to love you very, very much. And oh, how happy and requited we remain, for the creature makes use of and gives us our love, made her own to love us. Therefore, in our will, there are no dissimilar things between creator and creature. If she loves, she makes use of our love to love us. If she works in our works. Nor does she love or work outside of our love and of our works. We can say that our love is hers and hers is ours, and we have done our works together with her. This is the reason, then, this living in our will makes us and the creature happy, because we created her, because we want to interact with her, be together, work together, delight and love each other together. Our purpose was not to keep her far away, no, but together and fuse with us. And in order to keep her absorbed, we gave her our creating and operating act, which as it created things, so formed its waves of love and opened veins of happiness in the creature, in such a way that she was to feel within herself not only our will, our life palpitating and operating, but the sea of our joys and our happinesses, so much so as to feel paradise in her soul. And not only is creation always in act, but also redemption is always in act. And one who lives in my divine will feels the continuous act of my descent from heaven to earth. And it is precisely for her, for love of her, that I descend. I am conceived, I am born, I suffer, and I die. everything is for her. And in order to give me tit for tat, I descend, and she receives me, is conceived in me, is born again with me, lives together with me, and dies with me to rise again with me. There is nothing I have done which she does not want to do together with me. So I feel her inseparable from creation, inseparable from redemption, and from everything I did. And if she is inseparable from all our works, from my very life, what should I not give to one who lives in our will? How could I not centralize everything in her? If I did not do it, my love would not tolerate it. Therefore, if you want everything, live in my will. I cannot give things by half, but everything, and you will have the great good of feeling within yourself our operating in continuous act. Oh, how you will comprehend how much you've been loved by your Creator and how obliged you are to love Him. After this, I abandoned all of myself in the arms of the divine will. But because of certain sorrowful memories, my mind was restless, and my sweet Jesus, having compassion for me, came and blessed me. His best blessing was like beneficial dew that put me in the perfect calm, and I felt like a tiny little one, all timid, come out and freed from a storm. And my beloved Jesus, all goodness, told me, my good daughter, courage, do not fear, because courage is the powerful weapon that kills timidity and puts to flight every fear. Put everything aside and come into my divine will to form your breeze to all our works. They are all in order in our fiat, but do not move. They want the breeze of the creature in order to move their step toward them. And if the breeze is strong, they run. They fly to be the bearers of the good that each of our works possesses. So the soul who enters into our will as she enters unites herself with our acts to do hers within our own. And as she unites herself, she forms the breezes. With the very strength of our will, she moves, she calls, she captures, she forces all our works with her sweet and penetrating breeze, and she puts them on the way towards creatures. Oh, how happy we are, how we long for this sweet and refreshing breeze that the creature brings us in our volition. Therefore, be attentive and do not want to lose peace, otherwise you will not be able to come into our will to form your breeze, the sweet refreshments, the freshness to our ardent love, and the motion to our works. In fact, no one but peaceful souls enter into our volition. There is no place for others. And if it does not hear you follow its steps, and its works are not surrounded by the cortege of your breeze, with sorrow it says to you, oh, the daughter of my will has remained behind and has left me alone without her company. Now, my daughter, you must know that our divine being, as he created man, remained over him in act of pouring from us sanctity, light, love, goodness, beauty, and so forth. So by withdrawing from our divine will, he withdrew from under our reign. Now, when the soul comes into our will, as she forms for us the breeze and moves all our works with her acts within our own, we form the rain and we pour ourselves first over the fortunate creature and then over all. And just as the favourable breeze in our fiat calls the rain, invokes it, longs for it from our Supreme Being, so the operating of the human will outside of ours forms a contrary wind, drives away our beneficial rain, causing it to remain up in the air. Here is why many creatures can be seen like parched lands, without flowering and without fruits. But this does no harm to the soul who lives in our divine will. She draws apart from everyone and comes to live with her divine family, and she feels upon herself our continuous reign that our divinity forms over her. End of the reading. The 12th of June, 1938, volume 36. The truth bearer of divine seeds, how knowledge forms new divine lives. The glory that the soul will receive in return in heaven. One who lives abandoned in Jesus' arms is his favourite. I'm always returning to the divine volition. Its immensity is such that while I'm in the middle of its ocean, trying in vain to embrace all its acts, since it takes centuries to do it, and still they would not be enough to embrace all its acts, I seem to come back to my smallness. So while I was wandering in the fiat, my sweet Jesus, who needs the love of those who want to live in his will, told me, my blessed daughter, it is only when I speak about my will that my love can find peace and that it calms down from its anxiety and delirium. In the word, in the truth I manifest, it finds sweet rest because it sees its love taking place in the creatures in order to receive love in return and form its life. It is necessary to manifest the merits and the goods contained in it in order to attract and enchant the creature to live in it. Otherwise, they won't move. Now, you must know that every knowledge I manifest and every act done in my will, thanks to this knowledge, is like a divine seed acquired by the soul. This seed will produce new divine science. Oh, how she will be able to speak the language of her Creator. Every truth will be a new celestial language with the virtue of being understandable to those who listen and want to receive this divine seed. This seed will produce new life of sanctity, new love, new goodness, new joy and happiness. These seeds of truth will be as many divine properties acquired by the soul. The joy we receive when the soul operates in our will is such that we communicate it to all the blessed. You must know that as many are the divine seeds that the soul acquires by knowledge of my fiat, so many more degrees of our knowledge and glory will we extend to her when, having finished her life down here, she will come to our heavenly fatherland. To each knowledge acquired on earth will correspond a double knowledge of our supreme entity in our celestial residence. To each divine seed, a degree of glory, joy, and happiness. Therefore, the happiness, joy, and glory of the blessed will be in proportion to how much they will have known us. Consider, for example, a man who did not study different languages. In hearing them being spoken, he will not understand a thing. Moreover, he certainly could not be employed as a teacher of these languages to let him earn a higher salary. He will only be able to teach the little he knows and earn little money. In the same way, if men do not know us on earth, they won't make enough room in their souls to be able to receive all our joy and happiness. Even if we desire to give it to them, it would just not fit and they would not understand anything. Therefore, the glory of the blessed will correspond to how many acts in our will they have done. Glory and joy will be higher the more knowledge they acquired. This can make the blessed reach such a height that all celestial court will be amazed, because each additional knowledge is a new divine life that the soul acquires, a life with infinite goods and joys. Do you think it's nothing for the souls to possess many of our new divine lives as her own property? What will we not give of joy, happiness, and love in return for these new divine lives that she possesses? We long for our children who will live in our will to make ourselves known on earth, since it will be their teacher of the new sciences of their Creator and will make them beautiful, wise, holy, and noble, according to the knowledge acquired. We await them in our celestial court to inundate them with our new joys, beauties, and happiness that we haven't been able to give until now. And since in heaven all the blessed are bound together as a family, loving each other in a perfect way, they will all participate in the glory and joy of these children, not as direct glory and joy, but in an indirect way, thanks to the bond of love among themselves. So we want our will to be known on earth in order to show from the depth of our divine womb new infinite joys and happiness to those who live in it. Then he added with unspeakable tenderness, "My good daughter, I love creatures very much, but I feel more captured, won, and attracted to love the soul that lives abandoned in my arms, as if she had nobody in the world, only her Jesus, trusting me and me only. If she is offered other kinds of support, she refuses them, to have only the support of her Jesus, who holds her tightly in his arms, defending her and taking care of her completely. These are the souls that I love very, very much, my favourite ones. I surround them with my divine power. I build around them the wall of my love. Woe to those who touch them. My love will know how to defend them, and my power will know how to topple those who want to displease her. The souls abandoning me live only of me, and I of them, as if we lived on one breath and one love. If some human support arises, they look into it to see if I'm there, and if I'm not, they run away to find shelter in my arms. Only these are the souls I can really trust, confide to them my secrets and lean on them as well. I'm certain they do not get out of my will because they are always with me. The one who doesn't live abandonment in me, instead, runs away from my arms. She does not refuse human supports. Rather, she gets a taste for them. She is inconstant. One moment she looks for me, another for creatures. She is forced to feel the disillusion from creatures that opens deep gashes in the soul, and she feels the earth in her heart. My will is life, far away from herself. Oh, if everyone abandoned themselves in my arms, the earth would disappear for them. They wouldn't pay attention to anybody. I'd be enough for all. I love so much the one who lives abandoned in my arms that I show her the greatest excesses of my love jokes, my caresses. I reach the point of inventing new love tricks to keep them busy and centered in my love. Therefore, live abandoned in my arms, and in everything you'll find your Jesus defending, helping, and sustaining you. End of the reading. There are no more readings today.